What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, we have a situation where former WBC, former Olympic bronze medalist, American heavyweight world champion superstar boxer, Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, his name is being used to bolster that of British heavyweight contender Dillian Whyte. Now, Eddie Hearn, MATCHROOM CEO and promoter of Dillian Whyte, is stating that because Alexander Povetkin has tested positive for the virus and had to be removed from their rematch after Alexander Povetkin knocked Dillian Whyte smooth out, he had to be removed from the rematch because he tested positive. And now, since that took place, now, Eddie Hearn is stating that Dillian Whyte doesn't want to wait what could turn out to be 4 to 5 to maybe even 6 months before he faced Alexander Povetkin. So he's looking for somebody to replace Alexander Povetkin, right? And he says that Dillian Whyte gave him a short list of opponents that he would love to face, and reach out and contact to replace Alexander Povetkin. And on that list, lo and behold, is Deontay Wilder. Well, Dillian Whyte stated that Deontay Wilder was in need of him for a big money fight because he's no longer relevant. But why, oh why, would Deontay Wilder be on Dillian Whyte's list if Deontay Wilder's the one that needs Dillian Whyte? It seems like Dillian Whyte needs Deontay Wilder because, for one, DAZN is not going to pick up. See, DAZN and Dillian Whyte on a fight-by-fight basis. If it's a big enough fight, DAZN will pick it up. If it's not, DAZN don't want no parts. As DAZN didn't want any parts of Dillian Whyte versus Derek Chisora Part 2. And now we know that DAZN would have no parts in Dillian Whyte facing off against a lackluster opponent. Right? So DAZN will only pick up a Dillian Whyte fight if Dillian Whyte is fighting a meaningful fight. Thus, we have Deontay Wilder come into play. Now, obviously, they made a few mention of other names on the list that they would love to, incorporate. Right? Obviously, they have to do their due diligence. Luis Ortiz, King Kong Ortiz, should be on that list. He's not. Andy Ruiz Jr. is on the list, obviously, now because Andy Ruiz has lost now to Anthony Joshua. Right? Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz was asking Dillian Whyte to face off against him when he fought Oscar Rivas. But nonetheless, Dillian Whyte now, Eddie Hearn says they'll reach out to Deontay Wilder to look to make this fight. Obviously, this is a grudge match. They don't like each other much. So it would be a big fight. But I believe they're trying to catch Deontay Wilder on short notice. First of all, Deontay Wilder is a superstar in the sport of boxing, unlike Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte is not a superstar in the sport of boxing, not even close. Dillian Whyte has never even fought for a world title, let alone be a world champion in the sport of boxing. Deontay Wilder had a 5-year reign and successfully defended his WBC title 10 times, breaking Muhammad Ali's record. The legendary GOAT. Okay? Dillian Whyte has never even fought for one of the major sanction bodies. And his two biggest step-up opponents, he was knocked out. He was knocked out against fellow countrymen, 2-time unified British heavyweight world champion superstar boxer Anthony Joshua. And he was knocked out by Alexander Povetkin in his latest fight. And why is the Alexander Povetkin a huge fight? Because that was to assure him that he would stay the mandatory for the winner for the WBC between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. And he got knocked out cold in that fight. So he's placed himself in a position now to be the mandatory, but then he got knocked out by a 40-year-old Alexander Povetkin, who had multiple losses on his record. And he was knocked out by Anthony Joshua. So his biggest two step-up fights, he was knocked out in them. But you let Dillian Whyte tell it, he'll tell you that Deontay Wilder needs him. He don't need Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder needs him. Alexander Povetkin stoned Dillian Whyte after being dropped twice by Dillian Whyte. Seemed like Alexander Povetkin was on the way to being knocked out. But when you watch the fight, you could feel like Alexander Povetkin, even though he got dropped twice, you felt like he was still in the fight. And ultimately, he was still in the fight because he ended up knocking Dillian Whyte out. Now, Dillian Whyte, I would love this fight to come to fruition. But you see, this is another ploy to get Deontay Wilder off his square because he's pushing for the trilogy match with Tyson Fury in the first part of spring of 2021. Deontay Wilder he's filed a case and they're going to mediation to prove that Tyson Fury is trying to wiggle out the trilogy match with Deontay Wilder. So Deontay Wilder is adamant about getting his trilogy match and his redemption against Tyson Fury, who we know there's an asterisk by the rematch. You're not going to hear too many people make mention of that. Only certain people that don't mind stepping out on a limb for what's right. You're not going to hear too many people step out on this limb. Point blank and period, right? And so I've heard people, because I stated that I believe that Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder both beat Anthony Joshua after Anthony Joshua beat a 39-year-old Kubrat Pulev, who was his IBF mandatory, so I don't hold that against him. But you don't hear too many people making mention of the fact that Anthony Joshua fought a 39-year-old Kubrat Pulev. But when Deontay Wilder beat Luis King Kong Ortiz, the first thing that people mentioned was that Luis Ortiz was 30, 38, 39 years old. He was old. But you don't hear nothing about Anthony Joshua beating a 39, 40-year-old Vladimir Klitschko, a 38, 39-year-old Alexander Povetkin, and now a 39-year-old Kubrat Pulev. You never hear anybody make mention of those names, right? But I stated that Tyson Fury, even with his skill set, would beat Anthony Joshua, so would Deontay Wilder. I didn't like the body language I saw from Anthony Joshua, not wanting to, or should I say not willing to engage, right? He wanted to fight a distance, as he should, but that lets me know that he still don't trust his chin to hold up. And so I stated that Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder will both beat Anthony Joshua. And then people came along and they said, well, see, Blue, I thought you said Tyson Fury had an unfair advantage against Deontay Wilder. That's the reason why he won. Well, yes, he did have an unfair advantage in which Deontay Wilder sustained some injuries due to that unfair advantage. But that doesn't mean Tyson Fury cannot box. That don't mean Tyson Fury is not one of the best. That just means he needed an unfair advantage to beat Deontay Wilder. Nonetheless, with that said, Deontay Wilder is focused on this trilogy match. And if he goes the route of fighting Dillian Whyte, instead of standing on his square and upholding this trilogy match and pushing for it, he'll lose his position if he goes and faces Dillian Whyte. See, Eddie Hearn is not slick. He thinks he is. So what happens is Eddie Hearn is trying to dangle Dillian Whyte out there so Deontay Wilder could take the bait, fight Dillian Whyte, then Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua have a leg to stand on to push for this undisputed match that they truly want in the UK, on UK soil. But Eddie Hearn also has another issue on his hands, and that's former undisputed cruiserweight world champion who turned heavyweight and now has beaten Chazza Witherspoon and Derek Chisora in his heavyweight debuts. Eddie Hearn is being accused of allowing Derek Chisora to have no padding in his gloves and being aware of it, and then shrinking the ring without Alexander Usyk awareness of this. And Alexander Usyk said that was due to the fact that they wanted to give Derek Chisora every opportunity possible to be able to beat Alexander Usyk, because Alexander Usyk is the WBO mandatory challenger for Anthony Joshua's WBO title. And so Alexander Usyk said there's no amount of step aside money that he's willing to accept not to uphold his position. And there is no way he's going to allow Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, who put the carriage before the horse and agreed to a 2-fight deal in 2021 when they both had opponents and hurdles in the way. But you see, both tried to wiggle out as much as possible to try to get to the finish line of seeing Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua on UK soil for Undisputed. That's never happened before. They're looking to capitalize on that by any means necessary. And so with that said, here goes another carrot being dangled to try to get a step closer to this Undisputed match and to get somebody off their square. Thus the reason Alexander Usyk, he fired his management team. He said that they was too chummy with Eddie Hearn. He made Eddie Hearn aware of the fact that Derek Chisora had no pattern in his gloves, and he told the world that Eddie Hearn and Derek Chisora said, well, that's your fault because you could have worn the same pair of gloves he wore. Completely dismissing the danger that represents. But the health of the boxers is the most important thing, isn't it? The safety of the boxers is the most important thing, isn't it? No, it's not. The safety of securing your pockets is the most important thing within the sport of boxing. And so Alexander Usyk is not happy about that. So there's no way he's going to step away from this fight. And so what other way can they try to manipulate the situation to get another step closer to this Undisputed match? Oh, we know. Offer Deontay Wilder, Dillian Whyte, he takes that fight, he loses his position, he loses his stance, he loses his argument, and Tyson Fury's out the clear. No. No. That won't work. Because see, after Deontay Wilder gets the trilogy match and defeats Tyson Fury, he can move on then at that point anyway and find a fight with Dillian Whyte somewhere down the line. Because then, just like Anthony Joshua said after his fight with Kubrat Pulev, it's not about the man, it's about the belt. It's not about fighting Tyson Fury, it's about fighting for that WBC title. I'll fight anybody who has the belt, is what Anthony Joshua said in his post-fight after knocking out Kubrat Pulev. So that means Deontay Wilder wins the trilogy match. Anthony Joshua, Eddie Hearn should have no problem because they're going to go 50-50 split with Tyson Fury. Right? So they should have no problem going 50-50 split with Deontay Wilder. And because it's not about Deontay Wilder, he said the legacy for me is the belt, not the man with the belt. Okay, so when Deontay Wilder beats Tyson Fury in the trilogy match, then your legacy should be about the belt. And you shouldn't mind going 50-50 with Deontay Wilder because it's about the belt and your legacy. See, they know they don't want to play that game. They don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So they much rather go down the Tyson Fury route. But see, they understand the threat that Deontay Wilder represents and what he stands, the possibility of him being able to knock Tyson Fury out in this trilogy match and having a huge boulder, not a chip, huge boulder and motivation on his shoulders that could ultimately propel him to do exactly that and beat Tyson Fury. Not to mention, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Tyson Fury going into the trilogy match that's not going to be there for Deontay Wilder. See, Tyson Fury going to have a lot of pressure. He's going to have a lot at stake. Deontay Wilder don't have nothing to lose. Tyson Fury, his whole build-up, his whole approach to the trilogy match, everything, gloves, everything, going to be viewed with a magnifying glass. His concentration is going to be off. Because, see, he ain't going to be able to maneuver around the questions that's going to come his way. Because, see, people going to want to know, why you not answering this question? What about the gloves? See, it's going to be viewed with a magnifying glass. A lot of heat, a lot of pressure for Tyson Fury. And they know what Deontay Wilder represents. So here goes another carrot they're going to dangle. Oh, we give you Dillian Whyte. No, sir. To get him off his square, and get him off his thought pattern with the trilogy match with Tyson Fury. That's not going to work. Because after he knocks out Tyson Fury and gets Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte will still be there. After all, he's never even fought for a world title or been, let alone be a world champion. So he's going to still pursue this avenue. So he'll be there. But the big question is Deontay Wilder going to get his opportunity to fight Anthony Joshua once he beats Tyson Fury? Or is Eddie Hearn going to miraculously be calling for, oh, this should be a 4 fight between Wilder and Fury because it's only right? Right? Or are they going to be so eager to jump in this undisputed match with Deontay Wilder as they are with Tyson Fury? See, Eddie Hearn is in a win-win situation because Anthony Joshua, his fight or lose, well, the UK, the country he represents, still wins. And if Anthony Joshua wins, well, that's a double win for Eddie Hearn. But he don't have nothing to lose in this situation because he's going to stand there and say, I put on the biggest fight in the history of British boxing on British soil, even if Anthony Joshua loses. And they have an immediate rematch clause. You see how that works? So he has nothing to lose in that situation. He has everything to lose in a situation with Deontay Wilder because all the belts now come back to the United States. None of the belts are in the UK. Now you have to do all your business across the pond in the United States. Because the luster is lost in the UK should Deontay Wilder knock out Anthony Joshua. We understand how this is. We know what the game that they're trying to play. We understand that they're trying to use Dillian Whyte as a pawn to dangle a carrot in front of Deontay Wilder to get him off his square and to remove him from the Tyson Fury equation. That's not going to work. But drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.